Hey guys, I'm Aleister,
And I'm Alseia.
and this is the Absurdium podcast.
Welcome, welcome! Today is a very special episode. It's not even like an anniversary episode, but it's just special regardless because it's Aleister and mine, well, one of Aleister's and mine favorite topics. I'm sure we will try to do it justice, and it will be a multiple episode series in a sense. We're not gonna do it consecutively because that's just too much
Right,
work.
but-
And also I'm not sure if how many people actually enjoy the subject matter, but
Plus, we just want variety.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it will be at least 5-part series.
Oh, way more than that, I
Well, I'm giving us the benefit of the doubt.
think. It's going to be at least 7.
Well, okay, 7. I'm standing from like historical perspective. Aleister's like theories. Let's do fun. We just had like a very intense discussion about our plans for future of this saga
Right.
of episodes.
Yeah.
The
Which
topic is drum rolls. Aleister,
What?
you were supposed to say.
Oh, I thought I was doing the drum roll.
No, I was doing the drum rolls.
The topic is space
Woo!
and astronomy and other fun sciencey things.
Well, so the plan is we're starting with the history of astronomy today, and we're gonna be diving deep, like deep. I mean, deep in the past, not deep in information, because I feel like we're a little bit ill-prepared because I think we might not know precisely how to find information or like what information we might be missing and what
Right.
information might be interesting. So if at some point there will be much more information discovered, we may do a retake of this episode and maybe do another like double take,
Yeah. Yeah, as we
Of
go
this.
deeper, we're going to get better at researching
Yeah,
it and find
and
more.
maybe
so.
and maybe there'll be so many more interesting details that we would want to revisit this particular era of the astronomy and slash universe space exploration and information that that might be in the future. But since we just have a basic, and I'm pretty sure there's plenty of information right now too, and I mean, it's all obviously readily available online, but how many people do actually do their research
Right.
on often
Not many.
on the common base? No.
I have a hard enough time when I'm trying, so
I think the skill is to like narrow down to like topics and try to do and see how much leeway you want to get, because it also goes into archaeology and like other stuff. But yeah. So
yeah, there's
the
so
topic is astronomy for today. We're not really touching space because space implies that you are studying space, but I don't think in ancient times they could really study space. Like
Right.
like they had no
they were
means.
they were vaguely studying things in space.
Well,
but yeah.
actually, I shall. We should probably start with the definition of astronomy, which is astronomy is a science. Well, astronomy is the most ancient fundamental science that actually could be proven because it's very much repetitive and observable.
Right.
So astronomy is the study of that measures the size, the speed, the any other way of visually measure celestial objects in the sky.
Right.
It doesn't go deep into like black holes or like I don't know other galaxies. That's all very modern concepts. We're talking about literally what's visible: stars, moon, sun, comets,
Yeah.
eclipses, and of course and other
You could
moon
say
and
it's
sun eclipses.
like the oldest branch of science that actually.
It's not a branch.
Well-
It started with astronomy. It's
Yeah.
the most provable science. That's what
Yeah.
the internet says. That like it predates by thousands, like tenth of thousands of years, math and like physics and chemistry. It predates all of that, and
Yeah.
it's the most reliable of sciences because
Right.
it's so much more provable.
Yeah, it's like the oldest thing that stands up to the scientific method in a way.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
well, because math, chemistry, and physics and biology and everything it's all based on theories that would not need to be proven, and then later more theories and hypotheses would pop up, and either would prove, like further prove older theories and hypotheses, or disprove them, by thus forming more modern and correct, or maybe also wrong, but at least more modern versions of beliefs. That's how we excluded Neptune? Pluto. Damn it, I was confused. Pluto. How we excluded it from the entire list of planets. We're like, what?
Poor Pluto.
I know. There's so many memes online where Pluto's like, how can I even...
Justice for Pluto.
Right?
Yeah.
Come on. I grew up studying that Pluto is part of the planets.
Right. It's part of the family, dang it.
And now we have to exclude them. Now we know that it was like a stork.
Yeah. So sad.
Yeah.
Alexa, play Despacito.
Oh my God. Why Despacito?
That's the meme.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm not very well versed in meme culture at all, because I don't really follow on those trends. But anyways, yes.
That's good.
So, according to all-knowing Google, the astronomy goes back about 35,000 BCE. Like that long, okay? Also, I want to preface and do a little bit of clarifying. So, in the olden days, like at least a decade ago, we used BCAD abbreviations. Nowadays, scientific society and majority of the world want to be a little bit more respectful, and they use abbreviations of BCE and CE. So BC stand before Christ, and AD stand for Anno Domini, which means time of Lord or something along those lines. It's Latin. And since it's a bit too religious sounding, and it is, because I don't know if you know, but the date started with birth of Christ, or at least the creation of Christianity. So and since not the Christianity is not followed by the entire world and only just by some part of it, it would not be proper for the scientific society to limit it so much. So they changed it to BCE, which is before Common Era, and CE, Common Era. So BCE
it's a lot more inclusive.
Yep. So BCE, before Common Era, is anything under the current 2024.
Right. The additive dates.
Yeah, that goes backwards. And the Common Era, which is CE, is all our 2024. Which is silly when I think that some people online believe that the planet, the Earth, our wonderful world is only 2024 years old.
Right.
And I'm like...
I'm pretty sure I have rocks in my backyard that are older than that.
I mean, rock formation takes millennia.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, pretty much. That's why people can go back, do some excavation and see that, oh yeah, all those layers that you can see predates.
Right, carbon dating and all that type of stuff too.
Yeah. So let's clarify that 2024 is just the birth of Christ.
Yeah, right.
Not the creation of the universe or our planet, okay?
Right, that's just...
Imagine the evolution speed.
It would be like Sims on 10x speed.
Right. Great parallel. Literally, it's universe is playing Sims with us. We went from microorganisms to humans in the span of 2000, less than 2000, 100 years, because let's be real. Even if it's 1,000 years, there are paintings that are that old.
Right, yeah.
They're physical paintings that are 1,000-year-olds. So I'm like, well, we should be existing at least 1,000 years ago ago. Right. So how fast are we evolving? Yeah. And if we think about in the realm of that thought, imagine how quickly other microorganisms supposed to be evolving right now.
Right.
Yeah,
that would be a scary thought.
I mean, the Earth is 8 billion years?
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
Oh, 8 billion people on the Earth?
Ooh.
The Earth is 8 billion years old.
One
Does
per
it
person.
mean that in another billion years there are going to be 9 billion people?
I don't think it's gonna take that long.
No, it probably won't. But it's like a funny coincidence. Like
We were just at 6 like 10
we're
years
like
ago.
in the perfect 8-8. Oh my god! Woo!
Right.
Like I don't know if it's
This is actually probably the one time in history it's going to line up like that. Actually.
well. Also, we're talking about billions.
Yeah.
Until it gets to 9, or even we make a dent, it's like remember 1 billion consists of 999 millions 999,999 days 990 and on, so like
Yeah.
we can be like at 959 million and it's still 8 billion.
Right. Yeah.
So like the alignment might be a little skewed.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
I mean, just a bit.
Yeah, we're rounding up a couple 100 decimals potentially.
Yeah, like very much so. 8 billion people, 8 billion years. I'm like,
Yeah.
about right.
You
We're
take the big
rounded up.
number, the first one's the same. That's all that matters.
All that matters. That's how we count money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
If I have $202, it's 300.
Yeah. What do you mean that's $7.99? It's $7. It's like the whole point of the
That's so
marketing.
awful. Wow.
Right, yeah. That's why they do it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You know, if I see a 9 in the end, I immediately round it up
right.
to like,
As you
if
should.
it says 8.99, I'm like, it's 9.05 because taxes.
Right, yep.
But anyways, that's tangent. But like, I just wanted to clarify for people who got their timeline a little bit skewed. Just wanted to set you straight.
Right.
Like a timeline.
Wow, you're on
I
a roll.
suck. I had coffee
I can tell.
on purpose so I could have my fire energy because I was kind of not firing the entire day until like literally this point in time.
Fair enough.
Aleister would not let me lie. I was very focused
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
entire day. Like I was not having the greatest day. It was really stressful.
Yeah, you were definitely in get stuff done mode.
Wow. Yes. That's why I'm doing such a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so let's go back on the roll. So 35,000 years ago, we know that because archaeologists were able to excavate artifacts and see paintings in the caves. You know,
Right, hieroglyph type stuff. Maybe not hieroglyph specifically.
the just like
ancient cave drawing type
yeah,
things. Yeah,
that's what I mean. I forgot the words for it. So, but yeah. So basically, that's how they can kind of date. It usually goes between 35,000 and 30,000, but like we're rounding up to 35 because
Right.
5,000 years is quite a lot. So let's go like further down because I mean, there's very little way to specify it to a dot.
Right, yeah.
I feel like the span of 5 years. I mean, 5 years. 5 years would be great, but the span of 5,000 years, 30,000 BCE. That's adding. That's not adding our current 2,000 years.
Right.
That's just like before the Common Era.
Right, yeah.
So before a Common Era, BCE, that's like the closest we can get because there are obviously no like molecular composition. Like we don't know.
Right,
So
yeah.
30,000 years is the closest we can get.
Yeah, you can do like carbon dating stuff as I mentioned before, but I think that's not super accurate. That's like within a certain range probably.
Yeah, well, because if we think about the artifacts, we need to think at that point so long ago, they did not have. Usually, I feel like I'm jumping. My thoughts are jumping. I want to start from a good point. Usually how I think archaeologists work is that they kind of establish the timeline of how the cultures and how humanity evolved, going through from cavemen, right?
Yep.
Sticks, running, fire, fur as clothing, sleeping on the grass, kind of stuff, to more, I won't say modern or advanced, but better, like with actual house, with actual settled life.
Yeah, hunter-gatherers to
migrating
settlers,
one.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and of course, once you get settled, you have an opportunity to actually create things instead of survive
Right.
and migrate, because like migration means you're surviving usually. You have very little time to create anything of substance.
Yeah, because you're not staying in
You're
one
not
place.
really stable. You have no processes to actually do anything permanent. Like, for example, if you have to move constantly, you might not have the ability to be like, oh, well, I know that statistically in this state this weather happens, like winter looks like this.
Right. Or you could even take it down to the like relationship route. People can't build meaningful
Yeah.
relationships when
Well,
they move around so much.
if you're, I mean, okay, if we're talking about
It's
cavemen,
different.
if we're
But
talking about cavemen, they probably traveled within the same group, so
right.
they had same relationship in one thing. I actually
Yeah.
don't know how it worked, but I guess.
I would assume so. Yeah.
But I mean, like, to make any observation, you need to be stationary. Like, for example, if you're driving through Midwest in summer, you have no idea that winters are rough
Right.
or
Yeah.
like snowy. You have no point of reference if you're not staying there for more than.
Yeah, you're not there to observe all parts of
But
it.
that leads me to another point, because about 35,000 years ago, BCE, is when people actually started to notice the changing of moon changes and star changes, and that's how they
Right.
could start calculating the time passages. Because even though I don't know at what point humanity became more settled, if it happened, I'm sure it was a little bit before 35,000, because like to create
Right.
something of that magnitude where you actually discover it, I think it's a little more.
Yeah, it's not something
Okay.
you just immediately start doing upon settling
Well,
down.
caveman paintings are less permanent, because I'm assuming they kind of moved, but that's one of the first records, and they kind of span from Africa and Europe. That's where the first signs of
Right.
that was, and that era, people would note moon and star, specifically the star alignments, and then they started to kind of count a little bit more, like, oh, well, the moon is this way, it will take X number of days to get
Right.
to the same point of the moon.
Yeah, that's how you got phrases like fortnights and whatnot.
Yeah,
For the
because-
cycle of the moon, yeah.
Yeah, and the moon was the most reliable source because it was never changing.
Yeah, it's the most consistent.
So obviously, like, you could rely on like the passage of time through moon, because sun is not that reliable. I mean, we know that even now we know that the days progressively become longer, like from winter to summer, and then they progressively get shorter from middle of summer back to winter,
Right.
and cycle changes. But again, you need to actually pay attention to it. I don't know how much ancient civilization, well, 35,000 BCE, they actually did pay attention to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's one of those things where like the rate of change on the sun is so long that it's kind of hard to track, though.
I'm sure they noticed early on. I mean, like, definitely at least 10,000 BCE, but we don't know specifics, but I'm sure they did.
Right.
But moon, it only takes a month, plenty of time to notice. Even, it doesn't matter, like, even where you were.
Yeah, you can still see the phase
It changes,
of it.
like, very specific. So that were the first recordings, and that's actually like Mayas were one of the first recorded civilizations to have created calendars and started their all. Well, not Mayas. Were there Mayas? Let me just double check. So yeah, Mayas were one of the first ones, which is very interesting. Not the first ones, but like the most. I don't want to say the most, or they were one of the ancient civilizations in 750 BCE, when they archaeologists discovered calendars.
Right. Yeah.
And then based on and then in 6th century BCE, which is like 700, late at that point, it's vice versa.
Yeah, it
So the
starts to
time
get
goes
confusing.
from not 1 2 3, but it goes from 4 3 2 1. So it's different.
Right.
That's a little more complex. So and then Greek, in 6th century BCE, they found they started actual almanacs. I don't know if you know what almanacs are. Almanacs are like journals or magazines. They're like publications that would contain some kind of scientific facts or some kind of entertainment facts or some kind of, it's like a magazine, with facts, a little less gossip and ads, but a little more info.
Right. Or
imagine like ancient commercial, like build your house out of our new sand thingy and purchase a stick that has been sharpened. I don't know.
Just imagining ancient Garfield.
Oh my god. So yeah, that's how like it progressed throughout times. And then obviously archaeologists found more information in India and China and other Mesopotamia, which is more of like North Africa and like Turkey, Anatolia region.
Right.
Ancient, like around that, I believe. I think so. Mesopotamia is in Europe.
So
double check.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm totally butchering it's actual like in South America, but I don't think so. I think it's in Europe. I mean, not Europe, North Africa.
You mostly got it. It's like a region in Iraq, kind of.
Yeah, which I said North Africa,
Yep.
like Middle East, Anatolia, kind of that area.
Yep, that fits.
Yep. I'm not very well versed in geography of ancient civilization. I just know like very general idea of where they might be. But for example, in India, we know that we assume that the astronomy knowledge is much older than physical evidence of it, because
Right.
at that time they didn't leave any records.
Right, they just pass stuff down.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I think the earliest they did, I will not give you the date because I forgot, and I do not want to lie, because even though it's all very vague, I don't want to be even more vague.
Right,
Like
yeah.
I want to be truthful about the dates, but
We don't want to contribute to the
misinformation.
string phone. What do they call that phenomenon? The phone on a string thing, where it's like the
Telephone game.
where things get more jumbled and jumbled over time.
So
Yeah.
like I just know that they did discover at some point a record of like very like some information, but obviously it's much older, because I mean I'm sure if cavemen noticed changes of moon and celestial objects, then I'm sure every other civilization also noticed, because at that point they were very much more stationary than cavemen.
Right.
Obviously. And then obviously different cultures and different geographical locations and stuff, people start finding different artifacts and more archaeological objects that would prove that people did a lot of stuff. Actually,
Right.
It's interesting that throughout history, a lot of astronomers and astronomy is actually very much linked to the whole entire culture, like religion, politics, time, agriculture,
I think we touched on that a
astrology,
bit when we talked about
mythical,
astrology.
everything. Like astronomy was one of the major, like all-encompassing. It touches every subject. And
Everything tied in.
Yep, and that's why astronomy is so closely linked to astrology that we had a conversation about just a couple of episodes back.
Yep.
And because a lot of the astronomers back in the time were actually priests, and they would do a lot of tying together and counting and like making a lot of the superstition, mythical things connected to the stars, and that's how astrology came around. So astrology, an opposite of most common belief, is not the oldest study. It's actually astronomy.
Right, astrology developed from astronomy.
Yep,
in a way.
astronomy
Yep.
was the foundational, the very beginning of everything.
Yeah, it really was.
Like literally, it's like the beginning, because a lot of rulers and a lot of I don't want to say developers because it's a very modern word, but like
Right.
a lot of people relied on astronomy because moon, like tides, for example, they would notice that water tides and like ocean and sea would change during different moon cycles. So they
Right.
needed to plan accordingly, right? Because if your life depends on water and the produce of the results of the sea, like fish and stuff, and your crops depended on the water levels, obviously you would notice that at certain times of the month it became lower or higher. So
Right. Or even just more dangerous.
exactly.
Yeah.
So obviously, our agriculture developed very heavily,
Mm-hmm.
like based on astronomy and astrological.
Yeah, same with like when to plant crops and
Yep.
whatnot. Yep.
So astronomy was a very heavily involved science in the life of everybody, really, because
Yeah.
then they would be like, you know how they would, oh, your stars are aligning this way, thus you can be like more fortunate in this. I'm sure. And priests were the one who would be teaching because they were priests, very much involved in religion, in some kind of spread of knowledge. So they would be very much a center
Right.
pieces of the information. And
Yeah.
only
And they were who people went to for advice and all that type of stuff
exactly.
too. So.
They're spiritual leaders. So,
Yep.
and also historically, priests were usually considered to be the most educated because they were one of the first ones who would be taught how to read and write, because they would need to read the Bible or scriptures to pass down the knowledge, and they would
Right.
have to record the knowledge. So historically, priests were
Yeah, they were some of the only
or
people.
not necessarily just only priests, but any
Was it?
other.
Priests and nobility and
Well,
other
no, I'm
people.
talking about like specifically spiritual, thus,
Okay.
or like God, higher power related
Mm.
kind of figures. I don't know if they're if priest is the only word.
Right, priest,
feel like,
clergy type.
clergy
I don't
is
know if that
very
was really a
Christian.
concept back then.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. The sage. Sage was
Yeah.
one of the other words for priest, I feel like, because
Mm-hmm.
of higher knowledge, of higher like understanding, more enlightened.
Right. I think they also probably had people whose entire role was just scribe.
Oh yeah, but those
So-
are specific scribes.
Right,
They would
yeah.
be called scribes, people who would record history and information. So
Mm.
that's a bit differently again.
Right.
But yeah, that's how it all started, and then it all branched out into like astrophysics and cosmology and astrology, into physics and then biology and math and
Mm-hmm.
any other science, because so many other subjects and paths, scientific paths, were derived from astronomy, like all of them.
Right. Yeah.
One led to another, and it's like a string.
Now, does that include philosophy? Is that one of the branching strings off of astronomy, or was that kind of one of the only other that was its own thing?
Well, I feel like philosophy must have been. Well, philosophy is a science of thought.
Right. Yeah.
Like you think and you theorize. Like you don't have to solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
You have like thoughts. So philosophy also contributed a lot to development of physics and biology, because it all started from creative thought. But I feel like we're talking about science specifically. Philosophy is not considered a science.
Fair.
I feel like it's not. But you can double check.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's the root of a lot of sciences.
but it's not
is
a
it-
science.
Yeah.
Like astronomy is actually science,
Yeah.
fundamental science.
Philosophy is considered a formal science.
Really,
Yep.
I never
But
heard
it's
about it.
also part of the humanities, so it's kind of
Humanitarian.
it kind
Yeah.
of balances on an edge a little bit.
I just feel like it's such a gray area for me
Yeah.
personally, because like philosophy, for me, science is very much theory and proof.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have a theory, you make to prove it or disprove it.
Right.
Philosophy, you cannot prove or disprove anything.
Yeah, it's all just
It's all
conjecture.
very much like you have an idea, a thought, scientific probably, because you otherwise it wouldn't be really philosophy. But you'll be like, my thought is that, I don't know, planets, blah 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 blah, and you're like, okay, yeah, but maybe it's this way. It's very conversational. I feel like it's very pondering. It's very
Right. It's a
it's
bunch
very,
of what
like-
ifs, kind of.
yeah, and so for me it's harder to see it as a science, and I do not want to offend anyone who does consider philosophy a science, and I'm just speaking purely from my perspective and my understanding of it, and just my personal opinion, so do not take it personally. I'm just speaking for myself
Right.
and myself only. Aleister can disagree with me, and he might consider philosophy as an actual science. Very much. I consider philosophy a theoretical science,
Mm-hmm.
not the fundamental hard science like astronomy, astrophysics, biology, blah blah blah, etc.
Right.
Because it's harder to prove anything. Like you cannot get anything. You can get potentially a tangible result, but it will be part of the different science at that point.
Right, yeah.
Does it make sense?
That is kind of how it seems to go. It's a lot of things start in philosophy, but they don't end there.
Yeah, like there is no conclusion in philosophy. You just kind of start things and kind of bounce it to the other chord.
Mm-hmm.
That's how physics and other stuff started.
Right.
And then it tied in. Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure philosophy started way after astronomy. Because astronomy, again, very much easier to prove.
Right, yeah.
Very much more observable. But then thought people needed to have time and safety and comfort to actually, like, ponder about like, oh, interesting that I notice now that, like, this yellow, like, not the sun, but let's say orange dot gets further and closer and changes. Oh, it's one of a kind. I wonder what it is. It might be this. And then you start calculating, and then you see, like, etc., etc. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So astronomy definitely, I think, way big on. It's like literally.
I kind of agree and disagree.
Okay.
I feel like philosophy as an action probably started before, but philosophy as like a formal idea, I think probably came after.
If you could Google the definition of astronomy, because without definition of not astronomy, philosophy, I apologize. I feel like without an actual definition of philosophy, I would not know what specifically we're looking at.
Right.
So what is the definition of philosophy?
Philosophy is the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence, especially when considered as an academic discipline.
Yeah, I think it definitely came after astronomy.
Yeah, in this formal definition, I would say so.
Well, just because, again, to have enough time and comfort, like, to contemplate your, like, existence, it takes like enough time to not worry about, like, what am I gonna have for dinner.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you don't have to worry about shelter. You don't have to, because according to psychology, right, there's a pyramid of needs. At the bottom, it's our most basic human needs, like food, shelter, and that's about it. Food, shelter, and safety. So you're safe from the predators, you're fed, and you have a roof over your head, or a cave, whatever your choice of
something that stops
walls
the rain.
that prevents you from freeze or die. So I don't see how cavemen would be, deep in philosophical thought, being like, oh, I wonder what my existence.
Right.
Like, I don't think I'm not diminishing their ability of thought, but I don't think that was in the forefront of their mind. Like, oh, I wonder, like, why or how or.
I think that was kind of my point, is that it wasn't something that they, like, formally ruminated on, but it's like I could see an individual having philosophical thoughts.
But then individual that does not act upon it does not count.
Yeah, okay.
We all can have thoughts, but unless we actually put them into any conceivable action of even writing it down, it does not count for me, because just because I'm thinking about writing a novel doesn't mean that I'm a writer.
Right. Fair.
So I'm not really doing anything. So I feel like philosophy is a science that you're alluding to did not predate astronomy, way after.
Right.
At least by 10,000 years.
Probably.
I don't know what are the earliest settlement date to. We can look it up and see, but I'm sure it was not 35,000 years ago.
Yeah.
BC.
Let me see. Earliest human settlements.
Why do I have such a good ability to do research, but then I have such terrible ability to write emails?
I don't know.
Like, I cannot put my thought into an email. Like, I have to send in a formal request to our HR. And I have no idea how to format the email. And I'm like, it's like 2 lines. Well, 3 lines. One's like, hello, and the ends with thank you. And then 1 line in the middle. Like, I just have to write a line, and I don't know how. Like, why am I doing better with, like, research?
That's funny, because I'm kind of the opposite. I suck at research, but I'm really good at emails. Maybe
you can write an email for me.
Yeah, fair enough.
This is usually how it goes. I just kind of dump my emails on him. And I'm like, how would you phrase this? Please help me. Otherwise, I'm going to waste 30 minutes on this like, 30-second thing that I just had to, that I procrastinated for a week on.
Right.
Seriously, that's me. Like I just suck at writing emails. It's not my strong suit.
Right? It's not everyone's.
I'm just like, I'm better at like one-on-one communication. Like I have a easier time too, because I cannot transfer my voice or my tone or my expression into the email. It needs to be words only. It needs to be polite, concise, and informative enough.
Just start doing a bunch of emojis everywhere.
That's so unprofessional.
I mean, it only is until people get used to it.
What am I, Gen Z?
No.
I know we already blasted ourselves that we're not Gen Zs or Gen Alpha, so I have no shame admitting that we're a little bit older than Gen Z. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a Gen Z anyways, so.
I don't know. I mean, I think every generation has its own tough times. So maybe we can do episode on generations.
Ooh.
And like different stuff.
Yeah.
Do let us know if that would be something interesting, like a research analysis between different generations and how they face challenges and what challenges they face and how they resolve and what's easier and what's more difficult and blah blah blah. How many times can I say challenges and difficulties and just say the same thing in different words?
Right.
All means the same thing, anyways.
I bet that'd be a fun one.
Yeah. So, anyways, where was I? So it's interesting that while I was Googling, I know that we're not touching on cosmology or astrophysics now, but the definitions were very interesting. So I wanted to just kind of throw it out there. Let's go from 35,000 years back to modern time.
I thought we weren't going to do that.
I know, but that's literally just the definitions.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that. I'm like, Aleister's going to jump on it right now. And I'm like, what? And he jumped on it. I didn't even have to count 2, 3.
I admit to being predictable.
You are very predictable in this case. Okay, so I already mentioned that astronomy is measurement of celestial objects. Measurement meaning any kind of measurement you can do visually, probably, or time-wise.
Right.
And cosmology, it covers largest structures in cosmos and universe as well. So what I mean is like Milky Way, galaxies,
collections of things,
clusters of stars, like expansion of the universe, theories on it collapsing or continuously. Like, I mean, there's nothing going forever, so I don't know if it's at what point it's going to snap back and what will happen, but if it's ever expanding, I'm sure it's not going to continue forever.
Yeah, nothing goes forever.
Anyways, we'll touch upon that theory later, like in episode number 25.
Right.
Like, not episode of our podcast 25, the episode 25 of this series, which we don't know which episode that would be. It could be 100 at that point.
Yeah,
I don't know how often we want to touch upon space, because it's a very big undertaking, because we want to do it justice, because it's such an interesting topic.
Yeah, it needs a lot of research.
It's so much research.
Yeah. Shocking.
Dude. Like, if you have facts that we missed, please do add them in the comment section or write us. We do have an email, by the way, too. Like, if you want to send us an email, it is at Absurdium Podcast.
Yep.
at gmail.com. So if you do want to send us an email, if you're listening like on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, we're available. We also have Discord accounts too, if you want to.
Yeah, we made those and then never did anything with them.
Well, I mean, we do have a Discord server, do we? Or we just have accounts?
We made the accounts, I made the server, I never logged into it again.
We do have a server. So if you want to see us active there, you have to like send us messages there, so we would appreciate it. It's also an Absurdium podcast. Absurdium 2, right? Was it Absurdium squared?
So
Absurdium 2 at.
I think so.
Oh yeah, Absurdium.
I'm gonna put that on my to-do list for this weekend to maybe get that back.
We will get back to you on that next episode.
Yeah.
But basically, we do have a Discord, and we do have email, and we do have Instagram that we have not figured out just yet. So
yeah, that is very much in development.
Stay tuned for that. Anyways, and then we'll cover astronomy, we cover cosmology, and then there's also astrophysics, which covers creation of physical theories of small to medium objects in the universe. So by small or medium objects, we're not talking about a cup or a chair. We're talking about universe, cosmos size objects, like a planet or like a star or like a black hole. That's
Mm-hmm.
considered medium size.
Wow. Black hole, medium sized. Fair enough.
Well, I'm sure it even can consider small depending on the actual size of it.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, cosmology, as you can imagine, it's like we're talking about collections of planets,
Right.
like a galaxy.
I mean,
That's cosmology.
We've all seen those YouTube videos where it's like comparison of like Earth to like
Yeah.
Alpha Centauri.
So basically, cosmology deals with Alpha Centaurus. Astrophysics deals with individual planets and stars and like maybe smaller medium collection like constellations, which is still
Right.
part of the astrology and astronomy.
True.
I don't think constellations are actually like studied. I think it's very much part of astronomy and astrology at this point because there's really no reason for astrophysics to concentrate on constellations. They're just groups of stars, and the only reason why I think constellation even existed is only because of the way of for people in ancient times to calculate the passage of time, because the constellations and the stars and the groups were shifting, and I think it's easier to group something to notice it on the sky and actually see the movement of that group, because if you're just looking at the big picture of the sky, it's really hard to be like, oh, like I don't know where a star, but then if you notice like
You can't identify that single bright dot and say that's the one I saw 2 years ago.
exactly, so that's where the constellations came from. I'm actually speculating, but I'm like 95% sure that's why they were even created, because it's easier to just group it and be like,
Right.
that's the constellation of the north
These
something.
8 stars make Orion's belt or whatever. Yeah.
That's why like there's a series. Harry Potter, right? I love Harry Potter, but we all know that Black family employed star names. That's Andromeda, Bellatrix,
Right.
Orion,
And Sirius
Sirius, Regulus, and etc. etc. So yeah, Sirius is the brightest star in this whatever constellation that I don't remember. I'm not very good in constellations at all. I never really studied astronomy in school or college, even though we had a class and I was fascinated with it, but I never had time to take it.
Right. Yeah.
But so yeah, I think that constellations really play no real scientific need in astrophysics or cosmology.
Yeah.
They just purely astronomical and astrological.
Yeah, they're just kind of an
concepts.
arbitrary thing we came up with for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. So because again, for easier, thought process and stuff like that.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a whole thing, and we all know that. I feel like the Western world, in my opinion, Western world that we are part of, clearly, I feel like believes that maybe Greece was the forefathers of like beginning of science and of astronomy and like all the scientific like beginnings.
That is kind of a common belief,
Right,
because that's
but
where a lot of stuff did start. But
Yeah, but I feel like we cannot discredit Asia, because they probably had, I mean, China, for example, and India, they probably had intense knowledge of it that was just never really passed on well,
Right.
because Western world is so much more closely knit and so much more accessible,
Right.
whereas Asia a little bit more harder to access the mountains, and then just like difficult geographical location to reach to, whereas in the West, I mean, I'm talking primarily about Africa and Europe, areas in Middle East, because it's kind of clustered together, so it's easier to actually get there.
Yeah, it's geographically convenient to share information.
Yeah, so I feel like that's maybe why Greece is considered to be like kind of the beginning, just because it spread quicker.
Yeah, it's less that they started it and more that they were the first to share.
Yeah, so it's easier to credit them instead of like calculate who actually like figured it out first, Asia, and whether China or India, which is both are in Asia. If people don't know, I feel like people have a hard time realizing that Asia and China are both Asian countries.
Right. Yeah, India very much seems not Asian.
I mean, it's South Asia, but like it's still Asia.
Right. Yeah.
But that's why they call it South Asia. but it's still Asia. It's like literally separated by mountains from China. It's like that close. Like,
Yeah.
so Nepal is literally in between China and India. Like, you know,
Yeah.
right there.
Very close.
Like it's Nepal is like a tiny country. Geographically speaking, wonderful people. I've met many Nepalis. I just want to clarify. I'm not thinking like the culture isn't small. I'm just saying that the countries, in comparison to like two gigantic countries with like massive population, China and India, Nepal is a little tinier. Like,
it's a little smaller. Yeah.
Tad bit. So yeah, we cannot really say like, oh, they're first, they're second, or whoever. But it's just, we know that in Greece it was much easier. And also I feel like it was easier to credit Greece because of Roman Empire,
Right.
which if you don't know, did take in Greece into itself at some point. And that's why there are so many accounts of god names being one and then being the other. It's because one was Greek and the other were Roman, and then they kind of merged and thus created whole cluster confusion. As
you do.
So, but it's like Roman Empire in Greece was like literally neighboring. So it's like until it's overtaken, it was like woof. Which speaking about Roman Empire, did you know that Aleister already know? I just told you like some time ago that our modern calendar is actually a Roman calendar that was proposed and implemented by Julius Caesar. The very famous Roman emperor, the one that
he's the guy
hung up with Cleopatra.
Yeah,
I mean they're same time.
Right.
Did you know that Cleopatra is closer to our time than she is to the first pyramids?
I read that. That is a weird thought, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
She's closer to us than to the pyramids.
Wow.
It's like.
Yeah, that puts things in perspective.
Well, yeah, because Julius Caesar was 100 BCE. But if the pyramids were built like 3,000 years BCE, and Cleopatra was also 100, I actually don't know, so do fact check me. I think maybe even CE. I don't want to lie, so I know it's in the beginning. Like, no, it was way before. It was BCE for sure, because it was way before Christianity, because it was still Roman Empire.
Pyramids were built roughly between 2700 BCE and 1500 BCE.
About 3,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago. And Cleopatra was like what? Beginning of, like a couple of hundred years before the CE?
69 BCE, 230 BCE.
Yep.
Nice.
100. So I know my somewhat roughly. Somewhat like in the same 100 to 2,000.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, from 100 to 1,000. Like I'm like... Yeah, so Julius Caesar was about that. I think it was 79 BC actually.
Might as well look.
Yeah, that's when the calendar was kind of implemented, and they just kind of rolled with it. And the Roman calendar did create 365 days, 365 and a quarter. That's why the leap year comes in.
Right.
To and then that's why they created like roughly 12 months. That is like contained like about 31 days, just so it's nice and makes sense.
Julius Caesar born 100 BCE.
Implementation. I was going to say implementation of the Roman calendar. That's what I was asking. Specification of that. Because, I know that he was born like around that time. Well, if he knew Cleopatra, he needed to be alive during sometime that time.
45 BCE.
Damn it, I'm 30 years off.
So like the year before he was assassinated, interestingly.
I heard that actually, like, a rumor said that Cleopatra had an involvement in his death.
Huh. Interesting.
I'm just saying, rumors.
Right.
Some ancient gossip, some ancient tea. If you have proof, let us know.
We should ask her.
That's some science kind of stuff. I'm not ready for that.
Let us know if you want to have. We should have Cleopatra as a guest star.
Nope. We're not having seances. Okay, that's not that kind of podcast. We're not going in the realm of supernatural, unless it's a theory that's tied to a scientific exploration of some sort.
Sure, I could go find a Ouija board at like a pawn store or something.
I will dismantle this entire thing if you bring that thing near to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm I won't say I believe in ghosts, because if I believe in them, they will kind of, start haunting me. So I don't believe in ghosts, and I'm not superstitious at all. Thus, no Ouija boards around me. I am believing skeptic. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Probably not really. Like, I do not discriminate against theories. Unless proven otherwise, or disproven otherwise, I cannot say whether it is true or not.
Right.
Thus, I cannot be like, there's no afterlife. There are no ghosts. I don't know.
Right.
There's no proof either way. Whether
Yeah.
you're religious or non-religious, you cannot claim anything.
Quick tangent. Have you ever done the whole Bloody Mary thing in the mirror? Where you say Bloody Mary 3 times?
I did.
Yeah.
Or maybe I didn't. I was freaked out too much. I did summon spirits, but not with a Ouija board. We had our own stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there are horror stories that I do not want to do. But but I did a lot of like card summoning and stuff. Their card way to summon Bloody Mary too.
Gotcha.
We did that in the camp. When I did it in camp a lot as a child, and fun memories. Would not repeat as an adult, because I feel like adult psyche has more power to attract something creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, potential to attract something creepy. So I'm like, maybe not.
Yeah, we got a couple more skeletons at this point.
Yeah, well, they don't even need to be like. They can be like plastic skeletons.
Right, yeah, I'm not saying it's anything horrible, but it's more
Like,
than we had as kids.
I actually do have a plastic skeleton. Literally, I do have a skeleton at home. Not in my closet, though. It's actually on our balcony at my house. My brother did an amazing prank on me on Halloween. I mean, amazing in hindsight. It was not as fun, like, in the moment. I mean, in the span of 15 seconds when I was, like, terrified. That was not fun, but then after I was laughing so hard, he decided. I came back home on Halloween, and I can go back to my like quarters, my little mini apartment, and I'm changing, and I walk into my bathroom in the dark, and I face a freaking skeleton right into my face. You should believe I screamed like very loudly, and then I hear my brother hysterically laughing at me because he found so much joy in me being absolutely terrified out of my pants. I was laughing after like 15 seconds as well, after I'm like, oh my god, that's not a real skeleton. And then, thought process, I'm like, oh, it's a skeleton, oh, it's not real, like, why did it, and, oh, my brother, oh, he's laughing. Yeah, it took me 15 seconds, and then I started laughing and cracking up. So it's like, it was great. But then my brother didn't want the creepy thing in his room, and I didn't want that creepy thing in anywhere near me, so we settled on putting it outside and creeping our neighbors. So
there you go.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
It's still sitting on the balcony after like whatever number of months.
Excellent solution.
So that was amazing. I would not want that upon anyone. That definitely killed a couple of my nerves, but I'm sure I regained them back.
Right.
But yeah.
Took a couple years off the end of your life there.
Yeah, just a couple of nerve endings, and that's about it.
Fair.
It came all back.
So I shouldn't hang a skeleton from your desk at work then on Halloween.
Listen, you already tried to scare me once. You remember I was walking with a hot cup of tea.
Yeah.
We agreed that you're not going to try and scare me.
That didn't go well.
But also, I feel like it's going to be a little harder to scare me now in our new space.
Yeah.
Listen, our cardboard person stays in the corner by the main offices, and that's still creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Because
that gets me every time I walk around there, yeah.
Me too. I'm like, oh my god. And then, that's just our cardboard person. Like, whatever. So, yeah.
Nothing against cardboard people.
I mean, it's human size. Like a cutout of a person and just standing there. That's what he pranked me with. He just put it like right in front. Like, you open the door and it's like standing right there. Just like my skeleton at home. It was about the same way.
Right, yeah. Never again. I promise not to do it ever again. So.
Thank you. So, any other tangent you want to?
No, that was it.
Okay. And so throughout the history, going back to like archaeological finds, it's interesting that people would build cities, structures, and a lot of roads, and make everything based on the stars.
Right. I've heard about the roads being like...
Yep. Yeah. For example, Stonehenge. I don't know, I could not say it. Stonehenge was actually could possibly be a ritualistic pagan or kind of spiritual side.
Right,
And
or some sort of observatory or something.
I think it was very much rooted in astronomy and like planetary movements and stuff, because it's at some kind of apex point.
Right.
And then you had some information on other structures, right?
So actually, fun fact about Stonehenge, I did read a little bit about that. Do you know that Stonehenge was rebuilt like 6 times over the course of a couple
I think
thousand years?
they do renovations in them because, I mean, it's stones on top of each other so they can crumble. And to preserve it to the best of their abilities, they kind of redo it.
Right,
So
yeah.
that kind of makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I did have a list of like other observatory-esque things that were built in ancient times. So like there's a big building in Machu Picchu that's like, it's a temple of sorts. A lot of these are kind of just...
Well, aren't they Maya?
Is
Or
that...
Aztec?
I feel like Machu Picchu was Aztec. That's in
Okay.
Peru.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of these
Wait.
buildings,
Machu Picchu is in Peru?
unless I somehow got that wrong. Machu Picchu. Peru, yeah.
Okay.
It's in Peru.
What is in Mexico?
The Incans, I believe, were in Mexico, weren't they? Or no?
No, there's a structure not far from resorts.
The Castillo?
Nope.
Castillo. Huh. I don't have anything else in here, really, from Mexico.
Oh my god. Now I'm gonna die. You continue, I will look it up. Anyways, Machu Picchu, yeah.
Right, so it's I believe it's the Torrean. I'm not good with, like, accents on letters and whatnot, but it's basically just, like, a temple-type building, kind of a tower. And a lot of these, they just have, like, windows where the sun will shine through at certain points of the day, or, like, the moon it'll illuminate some specific thing in some feature in there. Either it's, like, a ritual site type thing, or it's, like, a big, giant clock of sorts, in a way. I guess more calendar than clock, probably. So, yeah, there's that one in Peru. It's one of the distinct features is that it frames the
Chichen Itza. Chichen Itza?
oh yeah,
That's Mayan civilization. It's very famous.
well that's
what
where
I
the
was thinking
Castillo
about.
that's where the Castillo is.
Yeah,
Castillo.
but I was looking just for that specific one.
Right,
Oh
right.
my god, what is that? It's very famous.
Right. Neat.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's
Continue,
fine.
Please.
One of the distinctive things of the Machu Picchu, the Torrean, is that it frames the Pleiades star cluster.
Pleiades.
Pleiades.
Pleiades, actually. Well, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I'm like Pleiades.
Right. Anyways,
Pleiades.
that star cluster was used by the Incans to plant potatoes, to know when to plant their potatoes.
Yeah. Also, it's interesting, like a little spin-off on Machu Picchu. Archaeologists and historians are still very puzzled on how logistically they built it.
Right.
Because it's like on top of the mountains, and it's like gigantic stones that were not even native to that area, so they had to bring it from like the bottom of the mountain. And so archaeologists and like modern historians are really like trying to rack their brains around it and how they could physically actually bring those, because even like our modern manpower would require very heavy machinery, like with very heavy
Right.
construction, to even bring that up.
Yeah, it's like more complex than the pyramids even.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
even the pyramids, people still don't know how they were built, because even like right now, they did a couple of, like, I think a decade ago or so, or maybe 2, they tried to recreate the building of pyramids, like, or they tried to build a pyramid and they couldn't without
Right.
like intense heavy machinery, like trucks and cranes and everything. So
Yeah, to think they did it just by rolling these slabs of stone on logs for hundreds of miles is
yeah, or
crazy.
like somehow otherwise transporting them just seems like very intense. So so yeah, people are still very, very puzzled and confused by how logistically that all was all built and made.
Right.
I'm also very curious. I would love, maybe we can dive in that. We can do like ancient archaeology, ancient structures and
Right.
architecture, and see how that goes. I would love to just research that stuff.
Yeah, that would
Do
be
a little
cool.
research. We should probably write down the
Yeah.
possible topics.
What was the other one we thought of?
I forgot already.
I'll listen to it
Okay.
or remember. So this one was like topic ideas.
Ancient architecture and city design of ancient settlements.
Huh.
Well, also it's interesting that pyramids, for example, in Egypt, it was noted that the placement of them and what they're facing are very precise to like degrees. They're like
Right.
45 on 42 on 42 or something, like they're perfectly aligned in some kind of magical way, facing this like
in relation to each other,
not
even
to like literal
like ley lines or whatever.
ley lines,
Yeah.
which is, how did they calculate that? Maybe by stars. Maybe astronomy was a very big part of it, because I would imagine that because the Earth spins in the same manner, the same speed. I mean, I could see they could figure out how the star movement across, and they could probably figure it out how they up and down, and maybe that way they were able to calculate the ley lines and stuff, which is actually a theory. I don't know if it's in any way scientifically correct or reliable, but I just had the thought. So maybe if since we're talking about astronomy and movement of stars and planets visible, maybe that's how they calculated things. I mean, I could see there being possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, they have plenty of time and specialists too, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes more sense than just getting it by accident. So.
Surely not accident. That would be very improbable.
Yeah.
Especially with how precise. Oh, it's interesting theory. You know what? We'll talk about an ancient architecture episode, because that's more related to that. But going back to astronomy. So yeah, people were finding things like in France. Did you know France is actually very rich place in terms of archaeological ancient finds?
I didn't actually.
They find a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
Like meaning like Germany, France. They have a lot of Germany, Austria, and other like.
Right.
I mean, France and Germany is like literal neighboring to each other. So.
I mean, they've been around a long time, but.
Well, all Earth was around the whole country, not, but the land itself, yes. So, in where the France is right now, they have a lot of archaeological finds that dates back into BC.
Interesting.
BCE.
Huh.
So yeah, and they found like a little bronze plate with gold incrustation of sun, moon, and stars that. I think is about 175 BCE. That is one of like the calendars that it proves that people did have astronomy knowledge back at that time.
Interesting.
And then they have workable calendars that were, I think they were in use for 4,000 years.
Really?
Until at some point it stopped being relevant, I think, and they just stopped using it after 4,000 years.
Huh.
And I'm like, okay.
Right, yeah.
They're just saying, okay.
Odd, but fair
I think
enough.
they started like at 6,000 BCE and then stopped at 2,000 BC or something. Like, that was very interesting. Like, for thousands of years. Imagine a society being 2,000 years old.
Right.
To like consistently update and use one monument that is a calendar and like fix it and make it and modernize it and like make it usable.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like for 2 or 4,000 years. Listen, we cannot even live 100 years without a war in our world.
Right.
Like in modern society right now.
Yeah, and they were.
And they like it doesn't really negate the possibility of like wars and conquers and like sieges and stuff like that. But I'm talking about that they preserved the monument that their archaeologists discovered that
not just continually, the monument, but the custom of utilizing it.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean that's what I mean. Like the monument existed like since 6,000 BCE and it's been in use for like 4,000 years.
Yeah.
And just the sheer thought of people utilizing the same monument / calendar for so long, regardless of whatever, is like mind-boggling to me.
Right.
I do not see any modern anything nowadays, maybe outside of a road.
Well, yeah, that would be like
used for so long.
That would be like the Golden Gate Bridge still being used in 4024.
Which is like, I don't think it would be.
Yeah.
I think the geographical landscape of the entire like place would be different. Like, just think about that. I don't know if we can rely on a bridge staying around for 4,000 years because, like,
that's probably a bad example. But
still, things are shrinking.
Plate tectonics and all that too.
I mean, it's also above water, and you cannot trust water.
Yeah, water erodes. Yeah.
Maybe like the remnants. I don't know how. Back then they built differently. They built to last.
They really
like
did.
For thousands of years.
Oh yeah, those old cobblestone paths are still around. It's insane.
Yeah,
or
like the Roman, like just the way the Romans built their roads, like 10 feet down and like layers upon layers of like sediments, like sand, gravel, stone, sand, gravel,
Right.
like whatever they did. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering it, but I remember like they had different kind of layers.
I feel like they even had like their own version of cement that they would use to like seal it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know that I think it's Colosseum or some kind of wall someplace. I don't want to lie where those walls are, or it's a bridge, or it's some kind of monument, a structure, human-made, obviously, that repairs itself. It's been standing for thousands of years, and it's still standing.
Huh.
And scientists could not figure out what kind of component in that monument or that structure makes it that it repairs itself. Apparently, I think it's the variation of limestone that when it gets wet, it binds itself back together.
That sounds right.
So under dry weather, it will crack, but then once the rain goes, it will kind of
like the molecular bonds will kind of repair
well, not
themselves.
even like molecular bonds, but it will just kind of like clay, just find it back together and just kind of
interesting.
So that's why it continued for like thousands of years to be stable and like still functioning.
And
which
nowadays,
is mind-boggling.
We can't make roads that survive 2 winters without cracking and buckling.
Oh my God! Yes.
Yeah. What the heck?
I mean, our laptop warranties is only for 1 year, not even 100 or like a 10, like a decade.
Right.
Let's not even talk about thousands. Like the plastic obviously is gonna stay for like thousands of years, but like not a functioning plastic.
Right. Yeah.
We're talking functioning structures. I don't even think our apartment buildings are gonna like consistently stay for like even like 200 years.
No, this would be gone after like 50 if it stopped being maintained, I would imagine.
I mean, it would be ruins.
Yeah, it would.
It would probably just break apart. It will be still standing, but like in 200-300 years, it will be crumbled, and there will be no remnants, unless it's like a lot of plastic and stuff, like rubble.
Right. Meanwhile, that limestone wall is still a limestone wall.
And it's probably gonna be for another thousands of years until it gets destroyed by us, by humans. So.
Yeah, sounds about right.
What else is there? I read so much that I kind of come empty-handed right now.
Right.
You know, when you have such like a wealth of knowledge that you just lose it. I feel like I was on a steady roll, and now I'm like, what?
Yeah. I mean, that could be the coffee wearing off too, to be fair.
That could be it, yeah.
And then I misunderstood the homework assignment, so I don't really have much to contribute this time around, if you can't tell.
It's actually kind of funny because I thought Aleister is going to lead the entire conversation because he was so excited about space. I mean, not that I'm not excited about space, but Aleister loves the topic.
You could say I was too excited about the space part.
Yeah. When I mentioned let's start with the history because as we mentioned in the beginning, I mentioned in the beginning, I was stuck in the entire episode, but as I mentioned in the beginning, it's such a big undertaking and such a robust topic with such a wealth of information that you cannot really rush it. That's why we started like
right. And
thousands of years back. And Aleister thought like, we'll just skip the entire thing and go into like the 1900s.
That's not entirely true, but like my history is like it starts with like the Greeks essentially, which is like
its
own
500
thing.
BC.
Yeah. That's its own episode. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally the next continuation will be the beginning of the actual like branching out of astronomy.
Like the human study of space.
Yeah, like a little bit more advanced because right now astronomy is very much visual and not not really even theoretical, I think.
Yeah,
It's very much like application based.
Yeah, it's a functional method of timekeeping, and that's kind of it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the most fun one I find is the solar clock.
Mm,
You've seen that, right?
like the sundial?
What?
Solar clock.
I mean, I suppose we're just speaking.
Right, the sun.
Same thing.
It's like the circular thing with the point that the
Yeah,
shadow.
yeah. I
Yep.
call it solar clock.
Fair. It's probably technically more accurate.
I
So.
don't think it's accurate. I mean, I just like the word solar and the clock, and I'm just like,
Right.
let's bind it together. But yeah, those are fascinating. How accurate
Right.
the time is.
They
That's
are neat.
fascinating.
And that concept is used a lot too. Like a lot of these ancient structures are just that same concept applied slightly differently.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just fascinating how much skills of observation can lead you and get how far they can get you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ancient humans, oh my god, why kept I bumping into the microphone? Like cavemen were able to figure it out
Right.
and, observe it to have any semblance of reliable data.
Right.
Outside of like, if I kill this, then I can eat. And if I cut that, I can clothe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like much more high.
It's long-term repetitive data.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
high level information because I did not know that cavemen, again, not discriminating against their intelligence. I don't know their level of intelligence because obviously times are different. You have different priorities.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
So we cannot be like, oh, they were dumb. I'm not saying that. I'm sure they were actually pretty smart to survive as species for so long.
Oh yeah.
Thanks to them so much, because without them we wouldn't exist.
Right. I mean, that's like the epitome of survival of the fittest at that point.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, that's highly, like, advanced.
Yeah.
Just in a different kind. So I didn't realize how much they actually contributed and how much knowledge they actually had on astronomy and celestial objects.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, obviously they saw the sun, warms, shines, illuminates, and moon not so warm.
Right.
Maybe
but they
still
could,
illuminates, but like
they actually comprehended like the movement and whatnot in a way. Yeah.
it's interesting. I think at some point also in the 6th century, based on the almanacs and the data, first eclipse predictions started to form.
Oh, interesting.
Because I know mythologically eclipses were kind of premonitions of some terrible things, because it's so rare, obviously, to ancient civilizations and like olden empires. The eclipses seemed so mysterious and ominous and scary because the whole sky just like blacks out, or
it's like end times
like
stuff.
some kind of aliens cover the sun, the entire existence. Like, it's terrifying if you think about it. Like, even right now we're all fascinated. Like, eclipses were not that long ago, and like everyone, we were kind of sad because we had a cloudy weather, so we didn't see anything.
Yeah.
But for people, like anyone who could, went out of their way to watch the eclipse. Because it's such a magical experience.
Yeah.
Still a little bit intimidating because it's fully dark.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if we're counting like full eclipse, which happens very rarely at like a specific geographic locations. So whenever full eclipse happen, like once in your entire lifetime, maybe like in 2 generations.
Yeah, and it's just suddenly pitch black in the middle of the day.
Imagine how terrifying that is. Obviously, it would be some kind of sign of God's ire.
Yeah, you would think the world was ending.
Exactly. So it never was a good sign that something was like that. I don't know if they paid attention to like moon eclipses, because I feel like they're a little lackluster, because full moon, no moon.
Yeah, it's a little less
at that point it's just like not that terrifying, because
not
it's
of as
like,
much consequence.
Happens every month.
Right. Yeah. See, it's interesting that they were able to predict it. I guess I can't imagine how they were able to really.
Well, it's interesting. They didn't specify the eclipses. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they were talking about solar eclipses.
Gotcha.
Maybe they kind of. Well, at that point, did they? If we're talking about the eclipses, did they know that Earth is round? Because I know in Middle Ages people did not believe that Earth was round.
Right.
But like at that time in BCE, way before the Middle Ages, which we consider like 1500, 1000 to 1500, right?
Something
Middle
like,
Ages.
yeah, pretty much.
Medieval times.
Mm-hmm.
Middle Ages, medieval times, Dark Age, plague,
Right.
witch hunts,
That's middle
etc.,
time.
etc.
Yeah.
We're talking about that Middle Ages, not like 15,000 BCE. That's not really Middle Ages. That's ancient times.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that at that time they realized that the planets are spheres, because how could they predict something will cover if it's not perfectly round? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What the thought process was?
Yeah,
Did they
it's-
realize things are round?
Like they'd have to conceptually even
But like
think of it.
conceptually, did they realize it's a sphere or just
A disc.
circle, a disc?
Right. That's hard to say. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we know that in CE, in Common Era, people did not think that. People thought that you sail far enough and then you just drop.
Mm-hmm.
In medieval times.
I mean,
but,
heck, some people still think that.
Oh my god, flat earthers.
Mm-hmm.
I actually am super curious to see what scientific backing that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I actually believe in it, because we did not get through thousands of years of education and theory and philosophy and scientific, proofs
Right. Just
to
go
come back full circle and to be like it's flat.
Mm-hmm.
There's too many proofs for it not to be correct.
Mm-hmm.
Like eclipses, obviously, like as pointed before, at some point it would not be a full moon, would show like a weird shape at some point.
Yeah, or like you wouldn't be able to see the moon from every point on the globe.
Because I don't know if people realize, but moon eclipse, when you do not see the moon, is just Earth standing right in front of the sun, covering the moon.
Right, it's just a big shadow.
So it's not like a sun covering the moon.
Mm-hmm.
It's our shadow being cast upon the moon.
Right.
So I don't see how that would disprove in any way that Earth is not a sphere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, the idea that government staged moon landing
That's a
is
fun
also
one.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Or like all the space pictures are also faked.
I've read a lot of those, yeah. They are...
I mean, I kind of did a little
yeah.
too deep dive in that. And like I did not need to know that much information. I mean, I can see them being compelling enough if you want it to be compelled.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to even entertain the idea, because I don't... What is in any way, shape, or form a reason to lie about that?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
seriously, what does government benefits from such a theory, from such, knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
So, we're landing on the moon. We're
Right.
not moving to live on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does it affect our everyday life? I just don't
Really-
see a point in
really
lying
doesn't.
about it. Like, lying implies that you are following some kind of agenda to get something out of.
Yeah, you're gaining
Like
something.
you're there's some kind of end goal. I just don't see
Mm-hmm.
what would be, unless there's like some kind of alien conspiracy, which is like a whole other realm.
Right.
I just don't see why there needs to be a lie about that.
Yeah, it doesn't get them anywhere.
It's just kind of like, well, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Earth is round, moon is round, we're not flat, so
Technically, the moon isn't round.
yeah, I know we're all a little bit like,
It's
You
looks
know.
like a lemon or something, apparently.
yeah, but again, it doesn't matter because, well, not flat, okay? It's a sphere or like circular shape of some sort, even if it's not perfectly.
It's a three-dimensional shape with ends that connect to each other once
It's
you go around
oblong.
it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oblong,
Yeah.
It's more like a football than a soccer ball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not sharp, okay? Like, I'm approximates, people. Do not take me literally.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
fair.
it's... I mean, an oval. It's the more like oblong, oval shapey than,
Mm-hmm.
like, just tiny, more squishy than round,
Yeah.
But not too much. We're not like this.
Right. Which makes sense when you consider that it's just a collection of space junk that's been kind of compressed together over the
I
years.
resent that statement. We cannot be junk.
We're not junk. I'm talking about the moon.
It's our satellite, whatever.
Right.
Is it satellite? No, it's not satellite. Is
No,
it
it's a
satellite?
satellite, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, moons are satellites.
Oh my god, I did not remember the official term in English, so. But yeah. So it's just interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's it for today.
Yeah.
I don't have any other information on the subject matter because I forgot it.
Right. And
And
I
I'm sure-
apologize for not getting the memo and doing the homework right and not contributing much. But luckily, Alseia here was able to just carry the episode anyways. So she's amazing.
Glad I did enough research. Whoop, whoop. But yeah, so we'll be there. We'll see you next time. And remember, be polite, respectful, and open-minded. Bye.
Bye.